So as Becky was kind enough to introduce, my name is Chelsea Ames. I am the PBIS coach and coordinator at the Pathway School. My co-presenters are Ashley Dobbins, she is our classroom management coordinator, and Brian Trusty, he is our chief operating officer. So we are here to tell you literally the path and the story of how PBIS was, how it kind of worked, and how we are flourishing and maintaining fidelity. So our three objectives for today are we're going to explain the alignment of PBIS framework based on the Career Readiness Skills Assessment. We're going to describe the implementation and the multiple evidence-based interventions that we used. And then we're going to share the outcomes that we have seen over the last couple years. So first, who are we? So the Pathway School is an approved private school located in Montgomery County. We serve kids who are on the autistic spectrum. They have intellectual disabilities, some of them have ED, and neurological impairments. And actually this school year was our first year. We just opened our first autistic support program. So we've got like little people, and it is the cutest thing in the world. So we serve kiddos 5 to 21. For those of you who don't know, any student that has an IEP, they are eligible to remain in school until they are 21. So that is one thing that we strongly encourage our students. So we've never seen this before. I should get it tattooed on my arm. So just like people at public schools have a triangle, Pathway has a triangle as well. Some of our interventions may look different, but some are the same. You know, we have done really well in the green and the red. Like, we can write a mean behavior plan. Like, we can do an FBA like that. So this year, we are really dropping the hammer with our SUM. We are implementing check-in, check-out. We are doing check and connect. And we are trying to reach those 10 to 15% of kids that we like years ago, we would just bump them up to the few. So we're really, really working on filling up all of those spots on the triangle. And then next year, hopefully, we'll be recognized for tier 3. God willing. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through the journey. And I think one of the reasons I picked this part of the presentation was because I was actually at Pathway before we started implementing it with fidelity. They brought it back the year I left, so I don't know if that's a red flag. But then I've been back ever since, and I have been able to see the progress that we have made. So initially in 2012, mistakes were made. We had a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and nobody knew how to boil water. We did not have external support, and we would slowly make small modifications to what was the PBIS framework. So like an example was our acknowledgement system then became like our classroom management incentive. So we were literally derailing ourselves, and PBIS was just not successful. So then in 2016, this is when Brian and a group of other people were like, hey, let's reboot this. So we had different people in charge. We contracted with the MCIU and Becky, who has been a godsend. You know, we did put together a great group of champions. Like, our core team is as solid as they come, and that's why we were able to build a steady foundation. Like, our foundation is cinder blocks, and that was something that was a struggle in the past, but I can stand here today and say nothing is going to break that foundation. All right, so now our new PBIS, so 2017, 2018. This is when they started with, all right, let's create the behavior expectations, the lesson plans, all of the things that we need to do to obtain fidelity with PBIS. And then 2018, 2019, in addition to all of these changes and modifications, they created a position for the PBIS coordinator to kind of spearhead PBIS and keep Pathway on track. I applied for that position, and I got it, so that was cool. No, I love it. So, but one of the things in addition to all of this was I used the example of way back when it was when something small happened, we had to change our entire system. It was a kid had one behavior, and we had to just clear everything and redo everything the Pathway did. Now it's, what's the data say? Is this a mole, like a little molehill? Okay, we're not gonna make it a mountain. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna see, let's get the team together for this specific student, and we're gonna let the data talk. So in regards to that, we have taught our staff how to use SWIFTs, how to take appropriate data, so everything is now as accurate as it can be. And ideas aren't coming to somebody in their dream. So then, here we go. It speaks. We were recognized, which is huge for our little school. We have about 190 special needs kids, and they all learn differently, so we have to then break down things even further so that they can understand them. So moving right along, we had to continue streamlining our process. So we used the PA Career Readiness Assessment, which helped outline our needs. Obviously the components, the self-awareness and self-management, our kiddos definitely need that. Establishing and maintaining relationships. These kids need to learn how to maintain healthy relationships, as well as social problem solving. So once we were able to discover the need, we completed the action plan and the curriculum map, which has really been, it's a map. So whenever we have questions, we just go back to that, and it keeps us on track so we don't get derailed and repeat what we've done in the past. So for your viewing, I have our completed, we'll do the framework. How does that, okay, how do I get it on there? John? So a copy of our map is actually on the, oh, no, hold on, here we go. So is actually on like the schedule, there's a copy of it. So once we were able to fill it out, we incorporated our path, expectations, participate, accept, thrive, and help out. And we are now meeting the needs of the students that we serve. And that's all for me.
So as Chelsea was saying, one of the things that's important to us was to build a real strong foundation. And also one of the things with building foundations is you don't want to just find the new shiniest thing, right? So our PBIS was designed on a strong foundation that we were able to kind of build on and grow. We also want to make sure that one of the things that we fell victim of at the time was thinking that PBIS was a program, that things that you did PBIS and you weren't PBIS. And PBIS should be how you operate. And you can have programs involved in your PBIS that help you with your operations, but PBIS helps enhance it and is your due north. So one of the things we want to do is, with our population of kids who were very complex in the classrooms, as many of you guys will have complex kids in your classrooms, was we had to find programs, but we also want to make sure we were finding programs that was, as we heard this morning, evidence-based and data-driven. And what we didn't want to do is just find the new shiniest thing, the new thing that's out there, come to a conference like this and going, hey, here's the program you guys should use. We want to find things that actually worked. So one of the things that I will tell you all to do, if you haven't done already, is go find your angel. Okay, go find your angel. There's going to be somebody out there that's going to help you with this. We found ours. And now I'll embarrass her one more time. It was Becky Millspot. And when we were trying to find out what we should do here, Becky helped us, and she sent us this research paper. And it's talking about those classroom management systems with positive behavior support. How do these two things work together? That they're not these two separate things, but these are these things in alignment. So this pilot study to improve classroom systems within schools' positive behavior supports really helped us figure out one thing was that, and I think we all will know, that punitive things and zero tolerance approaches don't work. And they especially don't work with students with special needs. So we had to find things that didn't create this kind of dilemma for us. what we did find through the research that there are three broad categories that we want to be paying attention to. One is the use of praise. Now that use of praise is really important to us because it shows our students not just what they're doing wrong, but the importance of what they're doing right. We're setting them with the positive bullseye of what to hit. That's when expectations come in play. So that use of praise was an important piece that came out of the research. Also, that reinforcement of appropriate behaviors. Being proactive in our teaching allows us to teach success, not just correct failure. If you've ever gone skiing in your life, when you go skiing for the very first time, they don't take you to the top of the hill and say, okay, go down. One of the first lessons they take you to when you go skiing is they take you over to the side, they lay you down in the snow and say, we're going to teach you how to get up. We're going to teach you how to get up because we know you're going to fall. When you first start skiing, you're going to fall. So we're going to teach you how to get up. The same thing has to go in place when we're thinking about adding programs and using PBISs. We're teaching our kids how to succeed, and when they do have their trip-ups and when they do fall down in the snow, how do you get back up? We're going to be proactive in our teaching to make sure we're paying attention to those kind of things. Oops. There we go. And then we want to make sure we're looking at effective behavior correction and reduction strategies. We want to make sure that when we're working with our students, it's not about the mistakes they make. We all make mistakes. We make mistakes all the time. It is about not making the same mistake twice. It's not about being perfect, as many people who are female or are identified as female kind of look at the world, or being strong or weak, as many people who are male or identify as being male is. It's about identifying where I need to improve and make sure that I'm doing things and we're providing opportunities to make correction so you don't fall into the fallacy that once I've failed, then I'm not worth it. Once I make a mistake, I'm no good. We do that for ourselves. We also have to make sure we're doing that for our students in the classroom, especially in our population when we're dealing with kids who oftentimes have to fail at least 2 times before we even see them. They're going to fail in their gen ed classrooms. They're going to fail in their special ed classrooms in the district before we even see them with us. So we have to teach them and be very creative in making sure we're finding effective corrective behaviors that will help that will have reduction strategies. So what we're finding is through the research is that when the study was done, when you had a program that was data-driven and evidence-based with PBIS, you start seeing improvements not only in student behavior, but staff performance. You can see that we saw more proactive instruction. We saw better praise. We saw a better 4-to-1 correction. We saw better classroom atmosphere when we were able to combine these two things with things that actually were done, as another word we heard this morning, with fidelity. So what does research kind of tell us? Why was this important for us? Number one is, it helped us figure out and show that by having a clear classroom management system with your PBIS, that the teacher's behavior and classroom atmosphere improved. Now, I don't know about you guys in your classrooms. I think we all would like to see our classroom atmosphere be better. We also saw that we had an increase in consistency of teacher behavior and an increase in consistency in language, which can be also really important to us. And we also were the research also showed that it gave us an improvement in skills. So not only were the teacher's behavior improving, also you saw their skill level improving within the classrooms. And then we also found that by having a manualized classroom management system, teachers were able to practice effective supports to students and behaviors. So the research shows what we were trying to prove when we're trying to find a program, that when you do it correctly, and you do it by building it and not by just putting it in place, and that's also a key. And that's one of the things that we sometimes get frustrated with, is that we want things to be in place. So we want to go to the conference, we want to go to the place, and we want to go find the thing they're doing, and we're going to bring it back, and when it doesn't work right away, we say, well, that can't work here. And one of the things we had to learn was, and we're actually learning right now, is that it's part of a process. You put this part in place, you build on it, and making sure you're building on something that is foundational and not sand. So these are programs we use. We're not endorsing one over another. They're all perfectly fine programs. But the only reason why I even show this to you is that the purpose is that we want you guys to find whatever programs it is for you. Whatever programs that work well for you in your system with your kids, because again, we're a little small approved private school that concentrates on special needs. You guys may be working in districts. You may be working in a special ed classroom in the district. You may be a parent. You may be whatever it is, but find what works for you, but make sure whatever you're using, as we again heard this morning, is built on something. Because when it's not, then you're going to keep chasing your tail, in which happened to us. When we first put PBIS in place, we found it to be the new shiny toy, and we treat it just like a new shiny toy you get at Christmas. You play with it for a little bit, you're excited by it, and then sometime about March, you're like, I'm done with this now. It doesn't work anymore. It's not what we need. What we've done, sometimes through hard work, through arguments, is that we come back to the foundation points, which is why you guys are in the room. You guys are in the room because you believe that PBIS can work. You're in the room because you think this makes sense to you. So you got to make sure that, because you will have outside forces, you will have your colleagues who don't totally understand or totally buy in. You may have administrators who just want the problem solved, and they'll keep pushing for the new shiny toy to come in place. What we are saying to you is, because you guys know better. I know you know better because you're sitting here today. Not just in here with us, but yeah, we'll give you credit for that too. But you're at this conference with 1,400 other people who are all saying, this makes sense to me, or I want to learn more about this so it does make sense to me. So I don't get hooked up on these. I mean, these work for us because that's what population we're working on, but more importantly, it's about making sure you're looking at what your framework is and finding programs that actually work. What we're going to talk about next is two of the programs that we actually found that work, and show you some of the evidence that showed that these programs worked.
Okay, it's my turn, and I'm going to be a little proactive here in my piece to let you know that this is either the part you hate or you love, because I'm going to ask for volunteers, so people will need to get involved. But again, before we get to that, so again, I'm the classroom management coordinator at Pathway. Again, Pathway is small. We've reiterated that. We're an approved private school. I loved what Brian said. You know, students have probably failed multiple times prior to getting to us. So that sometimes they were just used to that, used to failing. So we have to be very intentional with everything we do. PBIS, whatever program we choose, we have to be very intentional. And it cannot just, like that shiny thing, it's so important that we really have that foundation, particularly with the population that we're working with. So one of the programs at our school is the emotional support program, our ES program. Prior to implementation, during the 2018-2019 school year, we had 6 classes. We had a total of 40 students. Major behaviors were at an all-time high. Again, we did have a framework, but we were missing just that intervention, that consistent day-to-day piece to support our teachers and to support our students. Again, you can have these awesome social emotional curriculums. You can have these killer lesson plans, But if you don't have the tools to deliver the lesson, to have students sitting in their seats, prepared, engaged, regulated to listen to a lesson, what is the point of all that? So we needed something, right? So this brings us to our first volunteer. Who wants to come up, please? Anybody? We just need one. Yay, thank you. Come on up. All right, so we have some paper. We've all heard of The Price is Right, I hope. Our dear colleague Chelsea here did not really even hear of The Price is Right, so that was a little alarming to us. So that is why we're here. So we are going to display 4 numbers. So you kind of want to position yourself because you're going to want to be able to see these 4 numbers, okay? These 4 numbers are going to represent the total number of incidents reported in the 2018-2019 school year. So we're just going to ask you to make a number that would represent the total number for that school year, okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? So you're going to... the total number reported that year.
Okay, ready?
You'll have 15 seconds. And 2018-2019 in an emotional support program with about 40 students.
So she had 3,327.
What do we think, audience? You with her? Okay. Audience agrees? So you were this close. I mean, that was honestly the best guess. We were hoping we'd throw you off, that you wouldn't really think it was that many. So again, it was 40 students in one school year. There were 3,372 total reported incidents that school year. So again, we said incidents were at an all-time high. We'll come back, 1 second. We had 47 restraints, and we had 180 total risk assessments. So again, this was a red flag. We needed something. So then we implemented, again, this is a program that had worked for us. We needed a universal intervention. We had chose specialized classroom management through the Boys Town educational model. Now, this is post-implementation. Again, this is after we had the framework with PBIS, okay? We had trained our teachers on this program, so the teachers were equipped with the tools on how to address, how to handle behaviors in the classroom so that, you know, education could be delivered, but just how to handle, like, the day-to-day incidents that you're, again, in emotional support program, okay? Now, this is the 2019-2020 school year. So we need one more volunteer to play The Price is Right one more time to see what our total incident reports were this school year. Our population was 5 classes, 30 students. So we did go down a little bit, nothing crazy. But again, we're looking for another volunteer for our Price is Right. One more. There is a prize involved. I should have said that. I'm sorry. It's chocolate. Come on up. Thank you very much. Thank you. So again, same rules apply, but it will be easier. You only have 3 numbers.
I figured as much. I figured that was coming.
Just watch behind you too. That makes me nervous. Again, 15 seconds. So this is the following year. It's the total incidents reported that school year. Okay? All right. Ready? Cue the music. I like it. So what do we think, audience? She said 152. So remember, we were at 3,372.
You're saying up?
We think a little higher. Some are saying a little higher. Okay. That's a solid guess. I mean, that would be killer.
We would start a new school.
Yeah, honestly. But I like the positivity. We went from 3,000, and I don't want to mess the number up, 3,372 to 512. I mean, that's a substantial difference, right? Total restraints went to 7. Total risk assessments was 138. To look at it side by side. So I do want to point here, if you notice total risk assessments, not a huge difference, but that is okay because, again, we're catching behaviors a little earlier, but I mean, just restraints alone. I mean, 40 less restraints in a school year is huge. I don't know if anybody in this room has been in a restraint, but it is a big deal not only for the student, but just the staff involved. Like, no one wants to be involved in 1, let alone 7 or 47. So that was a big deal. I think we have one more, even just one more to really sell it for you, that picture, how much things had changed. I think go. Cue you.
Okay, so the one part we want to make sure that we're clear on is, so we had some success. But when we talk about fidelity, it's one of the things, again, my angel told us sometime last spring was, when we were saying, well, we're trying to get to fidelity, and Becky said to us, fidelity is great, but it's just your baseline. It's the minimum we should be doing. How do you make sure you're not just trying to reach the lowest hanging fruit? How do you make sure you're excelling? So we had Tier 1 fidelity. And as Chelsea said before, we were pretty good at Tier 3 types of activities. Being a special education school, we had to write IEP plans for every one of our kids. We had to have behavior plans for many of our students. So having these Tier 3 interventions, we were pretty good at doing. But we were very inconsistent with some of our classroom management pieces and some of our Tier 2 interventions. So we went to the research and we tried to find data. We also wanted to make sure that we found consistency across programs. What we found was some success with our ES kids, who are some of our hardest kids behaviorally. But we were still finding problems with our kids who are in our elementary, middle school, and our high school age students. And we were finding out kids that were in our ES programs were learning all this kind of language, and they would get into our other programs, and it would be inconsistent because they weren't following these kind of similar models. So we're trying to figure out how do we make things not the same, because you need to do things differently for those programs, but how do you build a consistency across all programs? We also want to make sure that our language was one that was easily understood if you walked on our campus and you understood things as they were going along. We wanted to make sure that our PBIS language matched up with our classroom management language. We wanted to make sure, another thing that we emphasize all the time when we were developing these things were, whenever you're writing something, write it in pencil. Nothing has to be ever written in blood. Sometimes we get too married with the program, or we get too married with the system, that when changes need to be made, we go, we can't make the changes because the system won't let us. If the system won't let you, you have the wrong system. You should be able to make the modifications you need to without changing fidelity. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're doing this kind of things. And we also want to make sure we're promoting proactive teaching rather than reactive teaching. We're finding that out, especially as we're in our next group we're going to be really looking at is our upper school. That a lot of the teaching, especially in some of the behaviors, was much more reactive than proactive. So we were looking at how do we make sure we're not just doing things across the board evenly, but we're doing things that were going to make us more successful in a larger way.
And to just give you a little bit more background, I was an ES teacher when we were implementing this new program, and I knew we had this great foundation, this great framework through PBIS. We had these rules and these great outlines for us. We had our path, but I needed help with the language. I needed help with that consistency to help follow that path. And I had these students, and we were making these great strides, as you saw in those numbers, and then they were transitioning into upper school, and it was kind of like, well, we again have this great framework, but we still need that consistency. So, pre-implementation during our 2021-2022 school year, our upper school program consisted of 12 homerooms and a total of 106 students. Our total incidence reports, again, I'm not going to make anybody come up, just to let you know. You just get to take the information in. We had 2,179 total reported incidents. We had 6 restraints, and we had 99 total risk assessments, okay? Then we said, oh wow, let's go back to the research. We had great success in our emotional support program. Let's see if Boys Town has a model that could fit with our upper school program. We didn't need something as restrictive as specialized classroom management that we were using in the ES program. We needed something a little bit, just some language that could be used with our high school students, so we found the Well-Managed Schools program. So post-implementation in the 2022-23 school year, we got a little bigger. We had 16 homerooms. We had 112 students. Our total incident reports was 1,509. Total restraints was 4, and risk assessments was 126. I do want to note, actually risk assessments went up. And again, I mentioned this before. That's okay. That means that we're getting behaviors earlier. We're not getting to the restraint. And we're getting clinical help. They're getting the support that they need. Maybe we're using the language, giving them the tools they need to request help in a sense. But just the data side by side, again, 6 is not a big number for a restraint, but to get it down to a 4 is still a big deal. We wanted to just take a look at some of the major behaviors that we were dealing with. Again, this is a high school program, an approved private school for students only with disabilities. Defiance in high school in general is going to be high. This is a huge problem for us and continues to be a huge problem. Physical aggression, it is, I mean, to be honest, it is a problem. Out of bounds is what we consider eloping out of the building. We are kind of a unique campus in the sense that we have almost kind of like little buildings where there's a couple classrooms in it. That's across a large campus. So it is easier essentially for our students to elope, but that's still a safety concern because they could be out of site supervision. Bullying was at 58 incidents the school year before implementation. 109 tech violations. Post-implementation, defiance still high, but it went down. Physical aggression, I mean, that's a pretty significant decrease. Out of bounds, 116 to 63. Bullying, 58 to 29. And technology, 109 to 55. I mean, pretty significant decreases across the board. Okay? Anything? Wait, other one after that?
So, what I want to do next is a little bit off script. Sorry. But I'll let everybody stand up for a second.
Oh, Lordy.
Everybody's going to stand up for a second for me. And I want you to sit down only if you do not believe the statement. If you do not believe the statement, sit down. You want what's best for your students. If you don't believe that's true, sit down. I want you to sit down if you do not believe you're doing your very best every single day. Sit down. Sit down if you believe that our kids are doing the best they can in a really messed up world. Sit down. Okay, so I want everybody to stand up for me, and I just want to give yourselves applause. Everybody stand up and give yourself applause. Stand ovation for everybody in the room. No, hold on. Everybody in the room, I want you to give yourselves a standing ovation. Please clap for yourselves. Own it. I need you guys sit down now. I need you to own it. Own that you guys do a hard job. You guys do an impossible job. You guys, if you think about what you have to do every single day, you have to take kids, some who have no desire to be in your classrooms, and educate them in a system that sometimes, not always, but sometimes is built for you not to be at your best every single day. You're in systems that underfund your classrooms. So you're going into your own pocket. You're having systems that are asking you to take some work home because you can't get it all done in the time you have in your day, and to care for your kids at such a high level that you start feeling, am I worth it? And we forget that you're worth it. You forget that you're important. You in your mind start believing, I'm just a cog in the wheel. There is no nobler profession than an educator. You take other people's kids and you take your heart out of your chest and you give it to them every single day. All I'm asking for you guys to do, one thing, is to recognize the superheroes that you are. Because sometimes we forget the superheroes that we are because we get grounded down day after day after day after day. So keep this kind of things in mind. So why was the information we speak today important? The information is important for us today is we want to make sure it's data-driven. Everything you guys are doing is data-driven. Why is the data important? Data is important because that's going to help you be able to ground your information and your argument and your needs in a valid way. When you come to a meeting or you come to a discussion and you don't have the data to support you, and it's based on feelings and what you think and your intuition and because you know better, that works only until you have somebody who says it doesn't. So we make sure that things you're doing, and we've been able to show through what we've done with our programs, that data does matter. Get staff buy-in. You guys are already bought in. You're brought in because I know you're brought in because you showed up to this conference. What you need to do is go back and find those other people in your worlds that can buy in with you. Find the other teachers, find the administrator, find other people to buy in to the PBIS and be able to get cheerleaders behind you to support you in doing the things you know is correct. Take the things you learned this week and figure out how to tweak them and make them work in your environments. So find those buy-ins, find those cheerleaders for you, because you can't do it alone. And the truth is, if you came here with somebody else, you can't just do it with them. You can't just do it with them. Make sure you're finding other people in there, find your converts, convert the other folks. And those who are dragging you behind you, make sure you surround, one of the things I say to our staff on a couple different times is make sure you surround yourself with sails, not anchors. People will look to be anchors in your life. People will look to be anchors in your professional life. They'll look to be ways to drag you down and tell you what you can't do. Find your sails, people who will lift you and push you forward. Get rid of the anchors, because anchors will sit behind you, they will gossip, they will tell you why the administration doesn't understand. They'll tell you why the programs don't work. They'll tell you why your kids aren't going to make it. And you get that, and an anchor's too hard to drag behind you. Find your sails, people who will lift you up and push you forward. Make sure you're seeing, as we made our first mistake, make sure you're seeing PBIS as a framework and not a program. The biggest mistake most people make is, and I heard this, and I just actually at our place where we're doing pretty well, I heard a staff person just 2 weeks ago say to me, PBIS isn't working in my classroom because of our golden tickets, our Patriot tickets, which is how we give out our awards during the week, don't work with my kids. And I said to the person is, those rewards aren't PBIS. That's a motivator. So you can say to me the motivator is not working in your classroom, but you can't say PBIS is not working in your classroom. That person was locked in their mind about what the process was, what the program was, and not what the PBIS was. You have to fight that every day. You have to fight that with administrators who don't get it. They've approved it. They've approved for you to be here today, but they're not always going to get it because they're looking at how is this going to be fixed. they're going to be looking at what does the house look like opposed to what is the foundation looking like. Make sure you are putting things in place that are realistic within your operations. Again, we have a smaller school, but we have a lot of kids. There's certain things we couldn't do. There's certain things we can't do in our ES program that we could do in our high school program. But we also have to take into account that teachers are asked to do a lot of stuff every single day. So if we give them redundancy in the work, if we're giving them tasks to do, that's one more thing. To a person who's already drowning, the last thing you want to do is give them some more water. Make sure we're doing things that are realistic so that we can make them happen and not things that we're already setting up to fail. Make sure you're having fidelity checks and consistency. One of the things that Chelsea mentioned earlier was one of the things that we do on a regular basis is that we look at, is what we're doing working? And if it's not, fix it. It's okay to be doing something that's not working. It's okay to make the mistake. It's okay to put a process in place and go, well, that was stupid. But what's worse is, well, we're not going to change because then we'll look like we were wrong. If someone was broken, fix it and move on. Being truly strong is being vulnerable enough to say, I messed that up. So be that way with yourselves, with your systems, with your students, within your schools. Figure out ways that your acknowledgments work for your students, but also make sure you're finding ways within your systems that you're finding ways to acknowledge the staff. Now again, I'm speechless with prior. That's probably not new information to you guys, except how many times you guys actually feel appreciated. Make sure you're putting things in your place, and you can put these things in place through your PBIS. I heard a very fun way of doing it this morning at another workshop, is that one of the things they do for their staff is, as they put in a ticket, they pull a weekly one out, and the staff person gets a mystery motivator too. Find ways to make sure the staff recognize that we see what you're doing, and we appreciate that too. When people feel appreciated, they will respond better. When they feel that they're just being burdened and it's one more thing on them, they're trying to, what we're all trying to do is get one more thing off our plate, right? And if PBS can be that thing that gets off my plate, well, then that can go. But what we want to do is make sure that we are the main course and not the side of peas. So if you don't leave anything else here today, make sure PBIS is not the side of peas at your school. And just make sure you're using data to reinforce everything you do. It's really important to us that and it's something that our angel has told us over and over again, and when she has come back to us over and over again and said, you guys, what's the data say? And we'll go, oh, Becky, okay, the data says this. It says, well, I think you know what to do then. We go, okay. And the other thing I will also say to you is, don't fall victim to the emotions of others. That's what not following the data to reinforce your efforts means. Sometimes we'll start changing things because somebody doesn't like it. Or this is not working for this kid. Or this administrator is putting pressure on us. Let's figure out why that's happening, but make sure you're staying due north at all times. Because that's how we're going to make sure that we make the positive changes, that you're able to take that you're able to reinforce the things you want to make sure you're doing, that you're able to put the programs in place that will be a complementary to your PBIS and not in competition with your PBIS. Oftentimes when we do programs in our schools, we do them with they become competitive measures. One of the things we had to make sure we did with Boys Town when we first put it in for specialized classrooms was there was language that was sometimes competitive. We had to figure out how to make them cooperative. We had to make sure that we were working on over the summer, that there was things with our flow chart. And one of the tasks we're working on right now is how to make sure we're lining those back up again so that we stay consistent in what we're doing. And recognizing that whatever you're doing in your schools, it's never going to be finished. It should be living. PBIS does not finish. It lives in your school. So make sure it has a heartbeat, and that's you. All right? So I know there's a question over here. Is there any questions? Do you have a question? So the question was, when we did the training for the Boys Town specialized classroom model, did we send all of our staff to the training? Did we send a few staff to the training? How did we implement that piece? Our initial training we did was we had trainers from there come in and train the initial group. And then since then, we've had people who have gone on to become trainers to train within our school. So they train all of our staff and does all their refresher training from that point forward. But we did have them come in initially to lay the foundation across the board for everybody, put it in, help us put it in place. And then when because we actually had to reboot our specialized classrooms at one point too, because we did the same thing with PBIS that we did with we were consistent in that we messed both of them up. So we had to reboot both of them to where they're now both pretty strong programs with us because we learned from our mistake, corrected it, and put it in place better. Is there any other questions? All right, I'm going to get borrowed time back. I want to take just a moment. I want to thank you all for sitting with us. Thank you all for being part of this. I want to also just thank you all for being here, because being here at this conference is important. Okay? So hopefully you got something from the day. Hopefully you either relearned something or reinforced something today in this session, and you'll learn something new or get something reinforced in the rest of the sessions you had this week. So thank you all very much. Oh, one thing, hold on.
All right, if you did not ask the question, I'm actually going to provide something to you. When they talked about the career ready skills, where they went is to the PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Ed, Career Ready Skills Toolkit, the I Can appendix. So when they said the Career Ready Skills Assessment, it wasn't a separate assessment per se. We used it to assess the curriculum, and that's how they ended up making those selections, which are pretty solid selections. Those are all evidence-based programs that you saw fit into their framework. But I want you to know that you have access to everything. And I really think that the I Can statements on the Career Ready Skills, not that I'm doing a commercial, but I probably could. Brian said I could take his time to do my commercial. But the people who put the I Can statements together, they are absolutely developmentally appropriate. And I suggest for those who are providing supports to teachers who are writing IEP goals for social skills, it's developmentally defined in those I Can statements. What skills should the student have, and how would the student show that skill is part of the I Can. So again, if you Google, this is the one you can Google. So if you Google this, Pennsylvania Department of Education, Career Ready Skills Toolkit, I Can appendix. And it has it from pre-K all the way up to grade 12 plus. So please just keep that in mind. What they did is they used that as their curriculum framework, and they used those exact statements to make sure that whatever program they decided to purchase, it hit the target skills for that age range for their programs. Does that make sense? So that means I hope that everybody here does the exact same thing, and they go to that part of the site, and the site gets so much traffic in that area so that we can actually be, number one, with more clarity for teachers of what is developmentally appropriate, right? In addition to whether or not you actually have social skills curriculums, or your lesson plans are actually encompassing those skills, which are what we need to build for those age ranges. Does that help for those folks who are wondering, what career ready skills assessment were they talking about? It's the I Can appendix, goldmine. And with that said, can we give one more round of applause for three very, very important people at Pathway School? And thank you so much for being here.